The two great laws. When Jesus was on the earth and he was teaching, a man approached him and asked him, "Master, which is the great commandment in the law?" And Jesus said unto him, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself." This is the ethical and moral standard for the Jewish and Christian faiths, and it's the foundation for ethical thinking and practice in America and other European and Christian countries. This is the ultimate standard, the two great laws, to love the Lord with all your heart and to love your neighbor as yourself. Now notice what it says, loving our neighbors as ourselves. C.S. Lewis said, "Love in the Christian sense does not mean emotion. It is not a state of the feelings, but of the will. The will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth is the definition of love used in the book, The Mission-Driven Life, and the standard definition for the Mission-Driven Mom Academy. This level 1 is all about loving God and loving ourselves. And we just want to take a minute and point out that these are also the two great laws that Jesus taught as the moral and ethical standard for mankind. That if human beings want to be happy, they need to love God and love their neighbors as themselves. Now, in both of these quotes, these two men have used the word will, which of course is about free choice, which means that love is something that we can feel and often do feel, but it is also something that we do, and it is ultimately something that we choose. It is a choice to love. It's an action that we take. C.S. Lewis said, "Don't waste time bothering whether you love your neighbor. Act as if you did." And that is why the 5 great religions of the world all focus heavily on philanthropy and charitable actions, because those are the actions that we do that help develop the feelings of love. That is a way in which we love our neighbor. As soon as we do this, we find one of the great secrets. When you're behaving as if you loved someone, you'll presently come to love him. If you injure someone you dislike, you will find yourself disliking him more. So this is an important aspect of this. When we treat ourselves right, we love ourselves. And when we don't, we learn to dislike ourselves, and it's the same with our neighbors. So this is kind of a conditional thing. Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself, and you can only love your neighbor as much as you love yourself. Now, in a world that's all about the iPhone and me, it seems a little counterintuitive for religious women, spiritual women, women who believe in God and powers higher than themselves, to start talking about the importance of loving themselves so that we can love other people. It seems a little counterintuitive because the world focuses on that so much, but that's precisely the reason why it's so important for us to understand what love really is. And that's why we focus in on that M. Scott Peck definition, and we focus on what C.S. Lewis said about love being a state of the will and an action that we take, and not something that we're supposed to feel all the time. And it's not about self-indulgence. As we'll get into this level 1 program deeper and deeper, you'll see over and over again that real love for yourself means really self-management and self-discipline. And we'll talk about that a lot and read some great books about that. Now, M. Scott Peck also said this: "Indeed, as has been pointed out, we are incapable of loving another unless we love ourselves. Just as we are incapable of teaching our children self-discipline unless we ourselves are self-disciplined. It's actually impossible to forsake our own spiritual development in favor of someone else's. We cannot forsake self-discipline and at the same time be disciplined in our care for another. We cannot be a source of strength unless we nurture our own strength. As we proceed in our explanation of the nature of love, I believe it will become clear that not only do self-love and love of others go hand in hand, but that ultimately they are indistinguishable. We can love others as much as we love ourselves, and as mothers, we are the example in everything. It goes hand in hand that as much as we respect ourselves, have boundaries with ourselves, discipline ourselves, we have the capacity to then continue to discipline our children and love them the correct way and have correct boundaries with them. How do you go about, how do you want your children to see you loving yourself? Well, we're going to work on this all through level 1, cycling through self-care 4 times. And with every cycle, we're going to implement more good habits into our daily lives and loving ourselves more and more. Do it loudly. That's my advice. Set an example. Let your children see how mothers and women and human beings ought to treat themselves. This can happen with all these different behaviors that we're going to talk about in level 1, with choosing good foods and developing our talents and discovering who we are and having the self-discipline to exercise and to pray. These and many, many other actions that we'll go over are the kinds of things that we'll choose to do to set the example of real love for God and for ourselves that our children can see. This is the first step to life mission. This is really probably the most critical thing you'll do in all of the Mission Driven Mom Academy is to put your own self in better order, set that example for your children, and then you'll find that you have more patience, you have better understanding of them, you have more self-confidence, and so you're better able to reach out and love them more unconditionally than you were able to before because you are taking better care of yourself. We'll talk about that more in future lessons. Then how do we love God? If loving ourselves means meeting our needs and disciplining ourselves in self-discovery, which are the 3 principles we're going to cycle through 4 times, here's some insights from C.S. Lewis. They are told they ought to love God. They cannot find any such feelings in themselves. What are they to do? The answer is the same as before. Act as if you did. Do not sit trying to manufacture feelings. Ask yourself, if I were sure that I loved God, what would I do? When you have found the answer, go and do it. Love is action. Keep learning about love and taking the actions that love requires for your own development, for your family, for your neighbors, and for God. And don't worry about whether or not you think you're worthy of love, or good enough for love, or ready, or if you have time, or whether you think it's going to pay off. Act as if you love God and yourself. Don't think about it. Don't worry about it. Don't let your brain shut you down. Just do it. As you see those behaviors that you're expected to implement into your schedule, as you go through this level 1 workbook, just do the actions. Just make a commitment now, right now to yourself that you're going to act as if you loved God and yourself, and you're going to find that the feelings will follow the feelings of self-respect, the feelings of self-discipline, the increased desire to be with yourself and to learn about yourself, and an increased desire to know God better and to be closer to Him. Hey, are you ready to have the truth set you free? Head over to audreyrindlisbacher.com and get the Truth Seeker Starter Kit for free, where I walk you through the 5 steps for discovering and applying true principles to your life so you can experience their liberating power. See you there.